Batman and Robin number 19, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. So last issue was an all-silent issue where it was just Batman grieving the entire time. But there was one point in there where there was a stack of movies, and they were labeled for Damian, and it said it was from CK, which we never got clarification on who that was. But this issue opens up with Carrie Kelly, who, for anyone who knows the Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller series, kind of important. And we see a teenaged Carrie Kelly driving her car, eating pizza, reciting Shakespeare, as one does. And as she gets to a red light, some creeps pull up next to her and say, "Hey, baby, how about you share that pizza with us?" And she says, "Okay," and throws the whole pizza at them through the window. We see that she was on her way to the Wayne Manor. And as she knocks on the door, there's no answer. So she leaves this stack of books there with a note saying, "Hey, here's the bill for our last few weeks. 10 sessions means $1,000. And I don't know what they're for. They're apparently kinescope copies of something. I don't know. Regardless, Bruce is like, "Who's this girl and why did she know my son?" He never mentioned anything about this. And Alfred's like, maybe because he has his own space where he can do things. And it's like, "Oh, you're saying I don't give my son enough space?" And it's like, you're saying this in the present tense, right? Yeah. And so he manages to go to the college where Carrie is, and she's at a party. Bruce knocks on the door, and Carrie answers the door dressed as Robin, because apparently this is a superhero dress-up costume party. And Bruce sees this, and he's just like, "Oh, you have no idea what that did to me. So here is the stuff you left for my son. He's not going to need him. Don't come back." And he walks away. And Carrie's like, "Wait, hold on. What do you, huh?" And she's trying to get answers about where Damian is. And Alfred's just like, "Okay, we're going to go now. Bye." So then we cut to Frankenstein because his book got canceled. And he's fighting against some eldritch monstrosities and whatnot. But then all of a sudden he is engulfed in some sort of gel and grapple hooked out by the bat jet. And obviously Batman is like, "All right, got him." Alfred hops on the comms like, "Oh, hi. Hey, I've been trying to call you for 6 days. You haven't checked in. And it says that the Batjet is somewhere near the Arctic Circle. You want to fill me in on what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just carving out a little private space for myself, like you said my son should have. Isn't that right, Alfred? Batman out." And then Alfred's like, "Okay, he's clearly not doing well. Let's go ahead and call in somebody." So he calls up Tim Drake and says, "Hey, you busy right now?" So we then cut to Victor Frankenstein's castle. And Frankenstein, he wakes up and he's like, "Ah, Batman, good to finally meet you. Kinda not cool with the whole kidnapping thing. Definitely not cool with being back in this castle." And Batman's like, "All right, Frankenstein, let me be frank with you here. This castle and you are evidence that the dead can be brought back to life without sacrificing other people, without killing. I need that. I need you to help guide me through that process using your old master's methods so that I can resurrect my son." And Frankenstein is like, "I'm sorry. You kidnapped me and you expect me to help you out? Not only that, you think I'd be cool with that? Dude, I am a monster. I am not. My whole thing is that I protect humanity from things that they don't want to deal with. And I'm thinking this is one of those things." And Batman's like, "I don't need anyone to tell me what I can deal with. I know what I can deal with. I'm Batman. I'm going to bring him back." And they're like, "You just have a couple of cadavers here, like of boys your son's age." And he's like, "They all died unrelated to my stuff. I just reappropriated them from the hospitals." And so he hooks Frankenstein up to some electrodes, and Frankenstein busts out of the gel. And they start fighting. And he's like, "Batman, look, I get it. I understand. I had a son once. That was a whole story arc in my book. I get having your son die." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. You don't get anything. You don't understand. I can't deal with this loss. I am not about to say he's dead. So therefore, we're going to bring him back." And basically, as Frankenstein looks like he has the upper hand, Batman launches a trap that electrifies Frankenstein. And he's like, "Look, you're going to help me one way or another, whether you like it or not." So then we cut to Tim Drake, who's flying in. He's on the comms with Alfred, and I love this panel layout where all the panels are stitched together, a la Frankenstein. And Tim's basically just chewing out Batman to Alfred. He's like, "Man, he's such a dick ever since Death in the Family. I don't want to talk to him." And Alfred's like, "Okay, but like he really needs somebody, and you're the only person with a jet that I know of. So like, can you please?" So Tim arrives and he's looking around. He finds a bunch of gross stuff and he finally makes his way to Batman. And he's like, "Batman, what in the hell are you doing?" And Batman has removed all of the stitching that was holding together Frankenstein and has basically, he's just completely in separate parts right now. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to put him back together." And Frankenstein's like, "Ah, hey, I hope you're here to save me." And basically Batman calls out Tim like, "Alfred sent you, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, he's worried and now so am I. This isn't right, man." And Batman's like, "Ah, whatever, just go back to your stupid little Teen Titans team. I'm busy here." And basically Tim calls out like, "Hey, he's dead, he's gone, you need to accept that." And Batman's like, "I died, Superman died, we're in a comic book, man. He's not going to stay dead. I'm just speeding up the process. So go and get out of here." And Tim's like, "All right, I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do this." And he starts fighting against Batman, pulling out some batarangs or whatnot. Frankenstein's decapitated head is like, "Batman, for real, I am a crime against nature, and your son would not want to be that. You take it from me, man. Not what he wants." But they're not listening, and Tim's like, "Didn't want to have to do this, Batman, but you left me no choice." And he uses his jet that he flew in on to blow up the entirety of Frankenstein's lab. And Batman is so ungodly pissed. He's just standing in the fire. Tim walks up behind him, just like, "Hey, man, I hope you understand." And Batman just turns around, gets right in his face. It looks like he's about to throw a punch. Tim goes full, like, chin tucked into his neck, like, "Oh god." And Batman just grapples out and leaves Tim with Frankenstein. And Frankenstein's like, "Could you maybe sew back at least my arm to my body and then I can take care of the rest?" So then we go one last time to Carrie Kelly, who's doing some weird Connect game with her roommate and basically saying, "Oh yeah, no, I don't know what happened to Damien, but like I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that. I'm not gonna give up on that so easily because that kid was different in a lot of ways." But at the very least, Bruce did come back and paid Carrie for her time. She only wanted 1,000. Bruce anteed up and raised it to a $10,000 check. So there's that. All right, try to keep it brief here. This is going to be a story arc that goes over the 5 stages of grief. This is denial, where he's like, he's not dead, I can bring him back. We're going to go through the rest of them. I already know that's how the story's going. That being said, I really like it. I really like this idea that Batman, because if you're ever going to have a character that can't deal with death in a healthy way, it's Batman. I think that's fair. I think that's a good way to look at the character of he is presented this death. How does he deal? And moving through the stages of grief is a perfectly good story arc, and I like to see how he's going to be able to explore his options here. I think next up is anger or rage or something like that. I think that's the next one on the list, because I know bargaining is third. So yeah, I'm interested in it. I like the art style, the moments here. I think Tim's probably the weakest part of it, but I really like how they brought in Frankenstein, because yeah, Frankenstein's just 100% proof that death need not be permanent. The other thing I need to mention, though, is Carrie Kelly. I don't know if this is the end of Carrie's arc. If it is, it feels like it's just kind of a gimmick for the sake of WTF month that DC is having. But it could turn into something bigger. I'm not opposed to it, I guess is what I'm saying. I just need to see where they're going with it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. I think it's really good. The only thing that I'm iffy on is the Tim Drake stuff, and depending on where we end up with Carrie, I think this issue handled it well enough, but if we get more of it, I think this might be a bit too much of a closed story to get that later stuff, if that makes any sense.